Good morning. Good morning, everyone. I hope you can hear me all right. There we go. Hello. Good morning. Good afternoon. Nao-san from Japan, so it's 4 p.m. there right now. That is a little bit more of an acceptable time for, people in the Oceania and on that side of the planet. So hopefully this is a little bit of a good time for many of you. How are you? I hope you're well. It feels like a nice slow Sunday. Oh, Miss Hart's 2 a.m. Oi. Yeah, I have to remind myself that other people are not as stuck in their day rhythm as I am, because I stop functioning promptly at 9 p.m. and I might as well go to bed because I'm useless, utterly useless. It's a bit ridiculous. But yeah, it's a lovely, cloudy, calm morning over here. I thought I was gonna darn my poor socks, which have been lying in my basket for a while, but I kind of want to start another shawl already. Not one that we're gonna film other than, here, maybe, in the live. But I think I have in my little, not the prettiest crafting basket, Maybe we should make ourselves one of those very pretty crafting bags of Crazy Quilt. I know Shannon Makes did a beautiful, beautiful one. A crafting bag that just looked so stunning. Yeah, I have some of the thin yarn, same as the black one. Just, you know, not black. They are really addictive to knit, and yeah, it's just so nice because they just grow and grow and you don't really have to think about it. Good morning, madam. Do you want to join me? There is space on my lap. You wondered what I would pick up after the black shawl? Well, I mean, it's nice. I like to have background projects that, you know, I don't have to film, and I like to make gifts so that I have something. Like sometimes I make gifts specifically for people, and sometimes I feel like I am becoming grandma in the best of ways by sort of being like, oh, I should have a little stack of things that I can grab if I need a gift for someone, and I just have a little pile of useful items for that. But yeah, how are everyone? Good morning, madam. You know, you could just jump into my lap if you wanted to. You don't have to come the long way around, I promise. I know you want to be on top of the cupboard, but my baskets are up there, so there's not really room for you, I'm afraid. Yeah, it's not for you. But yeah, what's everyone working on this? I hope you're having a calm Sunday as well, whether it be morning or afternoon or whatever it is. She has indeed graced us, and then she left again, which rude, but what can you do when there is a very, very serviceable wool sweater lying on my work table where one can sleep in peace, a little further away from mother talking incessantly about stuff to a box. Are you being restless? Oh well. Good mornings, 12 a.m. here in Mount Angel, Oregon. Wow. Oh, it vanished. But yeah. Finishing your blanket square, so working on a cardigan sleeve? That sounds nice. There. I'm a bit sleepy still. It was a lot of work with the shawl video. I probably gaped over a little bit more than I could chew with, you know, trying to do a little tutorial video and doing a pattern that I hope people can understand and a couple of other things. But what is life if not trying to do things that we haven't done before and seeing how that goes? 12 a.m. That is quite late. That is far too late for me, but it's nice to always have so many people from all over the world. Honestly, I'm feeling a bit, I think pensive is the word. We have a friend who, their mother passed away this winter, and they're an only child, so they have the entire apartment to go through and tidy and help out with, and spouse has been coming there whenever they have the energy in the weekends to help them out. And because they're an only child, there's so much stuff in, you know, bit of a hoarder house and so many things, and they keep coming back with items. I've been getting a lot of new clothes. There are a lot of crafting supplies. There are even curtains for the living room. You know, we're getting some big pieces of furniture when we can just get a trailer to go and pick them up. And I have this like it's sad because it was unexpected that they passed, but at the same time it's also a little bit nice in a way that at least their items, because a lot of the time when someone passes away, we're so busy. We're so busy with our own lives and we don't really have the time to take care of their things because we have such busy lives ourselves, and we end up, getting a service to have it driven away and taken to get disposed of, or if we're lucky, donated to somewhere, because we just don't have the time. And it's been quite nice to have this sort of melancholy thing where, oh, I have all these new, barely worn clothes from this woman who I never met and now never will meet because they passed on, and it's this like nice, melancholy but nice feeling of at least their things are getting used, and I will think about this person for many decades to come, suddenly having some of their items in my own possession. It's a strange world that we live in, but that is kind of nice in a way, if that makes sense. It's the things I'm thinking about right now. It's hard at 2 a.m. cleaning the house while everyone is asleep. Wow. That is energetic. Loved your shawl video? Well, thank you. It's still the beginning, so I'm all thumbs in confusion. Oh, that is... I can emphasize learning a new thing is always a bit difficult, It's... And sometimes it can be hard for me to remember that when it comes to knitting, because I learned knitting when I was very young, so it's been so long since I was a beginner in this particular craft. But I mean, it's very easy. As soon as you're learning anything else, you're taken right back to that beginner mindset where suddenly everyone else is super skillful and you're sitting there going, why does that work the way that it does? But I like learning new things, so I hope you enjoy learning knitting as well. Where I'm working on a hand-stitched fabric choker necklace. That sounds interesting. That sounds really cool. There's so many creative people. It's always so much fun to see what people are working on and crafting and making, and I really enjoy. I have a little Discord. Let me see if I can get this to work. No, that is not the right button. Here is one button. We have a little Discord where people show off. If I can be all thumbs with these technological things, where people share what they're making and their process, and everything from animation and knitting and crocheting and large crochets like big plushies and tiny projects, detailed projects the size of a dime. And I'm always so amazed at everything people make, and a lot of needle binding, and people needle binding with their own hand spun, and it's becoming such a lovely, warm place on the internet that I really enjoy checking in on. It's been a good time having fun with everyone, and you love learning to knit, but those charts for knitting have me going cross-eyed at time. I can understand that. It can be a lot at times. Like whenever I really think those Shetland lace shawls are gorgeous, the super intricate and detailed ones in super thin yarn, where one of the sort of metrics for success was, can you pass it through a wedding ring? And those are so amazing. And when you look at some of the charts for that online, my goodness, they are very, very detailed. And they certainly do. There you have to do increases and decreases, both on the purl side and on the knit side. And I look at them and I go, wow, you are so talented. And yet I don't think this is something that I could do, but they are so fantastically skilled and beautiful and just so impressive. Hello from Texas? Well, welcome. Hello. For a moment I tried to think about what time it was in Texas and my brain short-circuited. It's still morning for me. It's a morning chill vibe. It's a bit different from the afternoon, evening live streams I feel, where I'm a bit more awake. But it's also it feels very cozy and chill, and the whole world is quiet. That is something I always like if I go for a walk very early on a Sunday morning. It's so nice because at least here in Norway everything is very quiet. There aren't a lot of cars out, there aren't a lot of people about. It's just very quiet. Is that a link I shared? Yes, it's for our Discord channel where people share their creative pursuits and fights against toxic perfectionism and just try to be nice human beings all around. And we're having a lot of fun there. And I announce things like live streams and videos there, so if you want to have alerts about that it can be useful. But generally I'm just trying to fill it with resources for different crafts and learning things and just being creative in general, you know, writing, painting, digital art, animation. Like, all creativity is amazing, and I just want us to have a space where we can do that and share our wins and our struggles and everything with each other. I like learning a new technique and the unknitting while learning, as it always helps understanding the architecture of how knit fabric is made. Yeah, that is very true. I often find myself looking at an item going, how do these stitches work? I must dissect this and figure out all the intricate parts to make sure that I understand it, which I find a lot of fun. Left-handed here, and knitting as left-handed is a nightmare. I have to switch things, especially for decreases. I can understand that being a bit frustrating. I have tried it. I started out knitting left-handed, but got taught that I had to stop doing that, and managed as a child to turn it around, because that was the only way I could receive, you know, help. Because I wouldn't get any if I was insisting on knitting left-handed, which was difficult at the time, but now I find it hard to go the other way around. But yeah, I've heard people talking about how they just read the chart the other way around. I'm not sure entirely how that works, since I don't do that, but then presumably you could just read it from left to right rather than from right to left. I don't know. It's only for symmetrical patterns. I mean, it wouldn't work if a pattern wasn't symmetrical, then it would just be all a great big mess. But we all find ways of dealing with whatever we have going on, don't we? It says, I've started knitting so many times and even finished a free project, but I think I have to accept that I'm just knit lexic. That's a fantastic word for that. It's a good thing there are many other crafts out there. You don't have to do just one. You can do all sorts of other ones and have fun with it. And I think that is also the beauty of it, because if someone really struggles with a craft, there's no reason why they need to do it unless they really want to. And then you can swap crafts. I do that so many times at reenacting markets with friends. Like if you have someone who's a wood carver and they couldn't needlebind to save their life. You just be like, well, but I make you a pair of socks, you make me a bowl for eating. It's perfect. It's an excellent trade. Why not? We don't have to be good at everything to be able to share and be valued and contribute. I think that is actually a very nice thing to be able to do, to be able to share in that way. Lydia says 2 a.m. here. Bad storms here now, but decided to take advantage. For some reason I enjoy the night storms. It's calming, but I also like to clean during them. That does sound very moody and nice, and very different from here. Right now it is overcast, but it's very quiet. It's, you know, still in the air. And it's, but yeah, I also really enjoy storms when it's the weather for it, or when it's safe. We used to have, I grew up in a house where we had the little awning, you know, a little roof sticking out from out of the house, where we would sit when it was raining and thunder and all of those things, and just watch. And it's really nice when you know that you're safe to be able to do that. I always thought that was really cozy. So I can understand enjoying the storm as well as, you know, taking cover from it if necessary. Sorry, you were threading a needle. No worries, we don't really judge around here. I am making a dress out of scraps, patchwork. You inspired me as well as Shannon makes. Well, thank you. And Shannon is awesome. They're super, super nice, and they make so many cool things out of scraps and dumpster diving and trash. And I mean, Canel's little couch, fainting couch, that is a gorgeous piece of art. That is so cool. And I really enjoy so many of their creative videos and everything. It's just nice to see people make stuff out of things that other people would usually discard and have it be useful. Anyway, I think that is very, very satisfying. It's like getting something out of nothing. It feels like you get it for free, but it's just so nice. Yes, I love to sit outside the porch and listen to the rain. Oh, that is the best. Like rain against the rooftop, or an umbrella, or on the trees. It's just such a nice, soothing. I think we are actually getting some rain today, so I do get to listen to that when we open the windows, which is lovely. But yeah, so if you're feeling nitlexic, Lynn, are you working on anything else that is fun? I mean, there are so many crafts. There's so many crafts, so little time. Whatever shall we do with all the different skills and techniques with the limited time that we have? I want to learn all of them. There's so many things that I want to learn. And I feel like the years just rush by. Like, I would love to be able to make one video a week, just purely for the fact that, like, if I could have more hours in the week with which to do that, I could do more projects and make more stuff and learn new skills, instead of like 2 videos a month and then it's the next month and suddenly it's halfway through the year and you're like, what happened? I had so many things I wanted to make. What happened to all this time I was supposed to make stuff with? My project lists and want to make lists are so long. I'm sure everyone here can probably understand. But yeah, I just want to make all the things and learn all the skills, and I need like twice as many hours in the day to do that, and I still wouldn't get half of it done. I was chatting with another member of my online group and found out that their brother forges swords and father builds wooden boats. My grandfather was a blacksmith who made wooden boats. That is so cool! Crafts are awesome. And I always say that there's no reason why one person should be an expert in everything. Why would you? You wouldn't do that. It's not really useful, diversion of resources, especially if you don't really enjoy learning all of the things, to just make things that you enjoy and trade, and everyone wins. Everyone gets glorious things and everyone is having fun. I think that is the best of both worlds. I really enjoyed your tatting tutorial video. Wow, that was long ago. But thank you, that is very old. I loved it and waited until I found a tatting tool. I did at an estate sale. I tried it and it's challenging, but I'm not giving up. It is a bit challenging to get knots right. I remember struggling with that. I would actually really love to do another tatting video this year. We shall see if the time gods are with us for that, but that would be a lot of fun. And I hope we have time and opportunity to do that, but we shall see. From that person again who passed on, we actually got another knitting shuttle. It's up here in my wardrobe. I don't think I can reach it though, but it's a little red plastic tatting shuttle. It is super cute. Then when I got it, I was like, yes, I've been wanting to do another tatting video, and I think sometime this year we will see if we can find the space for one, because it is a lot of fun, and I don't think it's a very well-known craft. People always assume that I just bought the lace on my wool cape when I wear it. They never believe that it's been made by hand, which is always fun as a conversation starter, because we take trims and lace and stuff for granted these days, don't we? But before they were automatically made, they took a lot of skill and resources to make. I feel like the ideas never stop coming, and I will never be able to make all the lovely things that reside and multiply in my head. Yeah, that is how it is. That's exactly how it is. All the things in the world, just not enough time to make half of them. Yeah, I have too many crafts as is, but a lot of people do knitting, and it means it's harder to find spaces that aren't knit-centric. Also, I wish I could make myself sweaters. I can understand that. That is, I have friends who are crocheting big, lovely cardigans and sweaters, but yeah. I guess this channel sometimes gets a bit knit-centric too, because I find it easy and relaxing for me, since I have known how to do it for many years already, and I can sort of just flip my brain off and meditate while my fingers are working. But we try to change it up a little bit once in a while. Oh, you'd never heard of tatting until the tutorial. Yeah, exactly. Like, a lot of crafts are that's one thing that I like about video, is before you needed to know a person who could do a thing, usually and able to learn it. You had books at the library, but it's often very difficult to learn, very tactile, touch-based crafts from a book. At least it will be a lot faster if you have someone who's able to show you. And these days with video, even if you aren't able to sit with them in the room and show them and let them try and figure out what they're struggling with and how you can help, at least you can show them in a video, and maybe they'll have a slightly easier time than trying to learn from a book. But at least I think that is a fun thing to do. I want to get good enough at knitting to make the leaf cowl that I made, plus the shawl you just made. They are some of my dream projects. Well, you totally can. Totally can. I would probably start with the cowl because it's much smaller, so it's, as a practice project, it's not as big, but I guess the shawl is easy too, because once you get the technique with increasing, every knit round, then you sort of just continue like that, and you don't really have to learn many other techniques beyond that. So yeah, but go for it. Go do the thing. Go do the thing. Go do all of the things. My aunt made lace to make reproduction Randall's costume with porcelain head, hands and feet, making everything from bloomers outward. Oh, there are so many cool, when I see those on Instagram or wherever where people make historical reproductions of people's clothing, but in doll size, to have it like a little doll that is entirely in like historical clothing with petticoats and chemises and panniers or whatever. They're just so cool, and it's such a good way of learning and teaching, especially people who use them in historical like outreach to teach people. They're much less fabric and labor intensive, and then they can teach so much. I think they're super awesome, super cool when people do that. Oh, rag dolls, right? That is really cool. Yeah. The leaf cowl also beautiful. I'm sorry you are dyslexic. I would encourage you to play with it, but at least that wasn't my pattern. That is someone else's pattern. Although I do want to make a cowl. I wish I would make. I have this pattern that I would really like to make into a cowl, but it keeps fighting me. So I haven't been able to share it with you because it doesn't want to become what I want it to be, which is very rude. But I mean, that's how it is sometimes. So true, I'm a visual learner. I also have to know the whole picture of why it's done and what the end result is. Yeah, and that can be difficult sometimes if people get really impatient when you're trying to teach them. Like, they'll be like, yeah, but why? And you're trying to be like, I'm getting to that. We have to take one step at a time. But at least when they're sitting there with you, you can talk to them about those things and explain it to them. That is always one thing that I find intimidating about tutorials, is that, one, I'm used to having classroom settings. You know, when I was working in academia, I would teach people how to be safe in the lab and show people how to work safely with chemicals and fume hoods and what have you. And you could tell on their faces when you're doing the safety presentation whether they're with you or not. You know, you can tell if they're just completely lost. And then you can explain things again and talk about it and see if you can explain it in a better way. And you can sort of mend your explanation as you're going. And I find that to be a really nice way of teaching people. And when you make a video, you sort of have to guess at where people will struggle, which can be difficult when you've known a skill for many years. So I find it like having to guess what people will ask about and wonder about. Of course, comes from experience, but it's nice to just have someone with you. And another thing that I struggle with when it comes to tutorials is that a lot of people will rely on a tutorial as if it's the only right answer. And of course that is not true. There are many different ways of doing things and many different ways of doing it correctly and differently, and if it works, why fix it? And I don't want to get into that trap of being a person who's like, this is the only way to do this thing, and if you're doing it any other way, you are wrong. Because no, there are a lot of different ways to do crafts, and they're all valid. They're all good. So true. I tend to be a bit annoying when learning from someone. I ask a lot. My husband is the opposite. Yeah, we are all different, and that is another thing. Like, when you're trying to show someone how to do a thing, everyone learns differently, everyone absorbs knowledge differently, everyone will stumble on different things. So how do you make something that everyone can use and understand? That it's a bit challenging in that respect. But I do prefer students who ask a lot to students who don't ask at all, who feel like they are stupid for not getting it on the first try, because then you don't know that they aren't getting things, and that can be bad as well. And then they struggle to do things, but they don't realize that they could just ask, or they don't realize what they're struggling with. Sometimes people don't really realize why they're struggling, they just know that they're struggling, and that can be interesting as well. But yeah, teaching people is interesting. It's a skill in and of itself, but it is super rewarding when you get to see someone finally, like that light bulb moment when they finally get whatever you've been trying to explain to them. That is so satisfying, especially if they've been struggling. There's a beauty to both. I mean, I've taught both very knowledgeable students and students who are struggling, and it's very rewarding on both sides of the coin, because the talented students who are really into learning science or whatever are a lot of fun to learn. You get to talk about a lot of new things, but having someone who's been really struggling finally grasp a concept is so satisfying. It's so much fun as well. Learning is such a multifaceted skill, I feel. A bit underappreciated sometimes, but so important. But it all comes back to communication, doesn't it? Everything is just communication with other humans all the time. And it's one of those skills that I used to really struggle with, and I'm far from perfect. Far from it. But, we practice, we try to get a little bit better, and things hopefully get a little bit better. I think we should put in some markers at this point. Should we change it up and get a green thread instead of my red one? Long one. I would hate the American school system. Teachers always hated it when we asked questions. I remember teachers throwing markers at me if I didn't understand something. That sounds like a bad education system, but hopefully not entirely. Because it was always very interesting to me to hear about other school systems, but all school systems have their problems, don't they? And it's a lot to do with teachers and local cultures and what have you. We have placed this one in the wrong place. No, one more. But I also had struggles with teachers as a child, who, when I had a lot less tact, you correct teachers on grammar and spelling things wrong, and they get very mad. And you don't understand as a child why, because you're just trying to help. But yeah, it's teachers make or break whether someone enjoys school. They're so important. They're so essential. And like, everyone remembers a bad teacher, but I also remember the really good ones, the ones who really cared, the ones where, I didn't really try in school because I had it quite easy. It was quite easy for me to get okay grades, but I didn't work to get the best grades because I didn't want to stand out. And I had a couple of really good teachers who, whenever we were doing like different levels of homework, would be like, I don't want you to be on the medium level. I want you to level up, do the hard homework. And it was a sort of acknowledgement that they thought I could do it, and also a little bit of a push of like, you should be doing the hard stuff. This is what you are. And those teachers were so good. They were so appreciated because they did it in both directions. They really helped the struggling ones, but they also pushed the good ones to be better. And those teachers, I remember them so well. They were, oh yeah, so memorable, so great. I appreciate them to this day for doing those things and doing the extra work of making 3 different levels of homework, because they didn't have to do that. They could just give one to everyone, but they went to that extra mile to do that, and that is so amazing. Back with tea and sweets. On students asking questions, I always encourage all students to ask. There are no dumb questions, and speak up. I think many are afraid. many are afraid of being seen as stupid. Many are afraid of, everyone else getting the thing that they are struggling with, when often it's the opposite. Like if you're confused about something, it's often that a lot of the other students in class are wondering about it as well. But especially in this society that favors, appearing to be perfect and everyone getting everything on the first try and getting, the perfect grades and the perfect job and the perfect life, and all of these external pressures just devastating children to, just do and be and excel at everything. It's not helpful to anyone. It's not helpful to learning, and it's just why have we built it in this way? It doesn't make any sense. Everyone is learning all of the time, and it's weird to pretend otherwise, that sometimes like people are perfect. It's just not true. People think being good at something means you'll be good at teaching it, and no. I couldn't agree more, Lynn. Yes, teaching is very much a skill in and of itself, and it's so frustrating, isn't it? In academia, I remember the university in Oslo were doing, maybe they still do, they would have like summer school for professors to teach them, didactics, to teach them teaching, to teach them, give them tips and tricks for how to keep the attention of their audience, and making good slides that were easy to understand, easy to reread for exams and stuff like that. But of course, the really good teachers, the ones who really enjoy teaching, are going to be the ones who try to improve their knowledge and attend these voluntary courses, whereas the ones who don't really care or don't know that they're bad don't really see the need to attend these courses. So you would just keep splitting the divide between the great teachers and the people who were probably really good researchers but not very good communicators and teachers, because they didn't see the value of joining those courses. So it didn't help the poor educators become better, because it just helped the good educators become even better. Which is a bit frustrating, but I mean, it is what it is. You couldn't force them either. I had that experience in school as a young child. I think teachers are overwhelmed here with the requirements they're hammered to meet. It's a sad thing. Yeah, it's a school system is a difficult beast. It's a very big beast to tackle, and I mean, the remnants from Victorian era training children to work in factories and just sit still and be quiet, and that is how we do the schooling, and it's just sort of transitioned to today, and we still do a lot of our education in that way, and it's not necessarily the best for children. And I mean, a lot of children are getting afraid of going to school, getting afraid of showing up, of raising their hand, and yeah, I don't think it's like, what do we have instead that could work? But I don't think it's the best system for learning. But there are a lot of good teachers out there as well, doing a lot of good work and doing the best with the tools that they have. Like, don't want to condemn anything and everything, because there are so many great teachers out there doing the very best they have with very limited resources, and to do good and right by the children. The amount of times I got told off or punished for knowing stuff I wasn't supposed to, yeah, same. Or if you got excited about learning something and, kept doing tasks in the book, and you got yelled at because now you didn't have homework for the next few weeks, and that was somehow your fault for being excited about learning. It's yeah. It's a bit difficult, isn't it? Yeah, teaching and being good at something are two very, very different things. Teaching requires being able to convey ideas and concepts. I also think it's important to be able to take criticism and adapt, especially important. Being able to take genuine feedback is really, really important. Of course, you also need to know the difference between genuine feedback and someone who just struggles and needs somewhere to vent, but I mean, you do your best. The teachers that pushed harder, I later came to appreciate more. Yeah, exactly. Because you knew that they were doing it because they knew you had it in you, like they could see that you had something in you that could do the thing. Yeah, there are. I had a. I mean, there are always some bad teachers, but I had a lot of good ones too. And I want to try to remember the good ones because they did have a really important impact on my life. I had a chemistry teacher in high school who taught me the third year of chemistry, and we only had chemistry in second and third year in the school that I went to. And when I had the second year, I didn't learn a lot from them. I struggled with their communication and their education style. So I came to the third year not having the curriculum for the first year bank, but she managed to help me through that and teach me that I actually enjoyed chemistry a lot when she was teaching it, and we managed to get through the exams and everything, essentially teaching me 2 curriculums in 1 year, because we went through the first one as well in order to get understanding for the second one. She was amazing, and a big reason why I went on to study chemistry in university, when I was taught that, you know, STEM is always good and that's how you're going to help the environmental crisis and everything. So as long as you study STEM, that's going to be good, which is an oversimplification and not entirely true. But it is what it is. What is the best way to block linen yarn? Do you block the same way as wool? I haven't actually blocked linen yarn. I haven't gotten there yet, but I would assume so. You could always Google it. But linen can be washed in a washing machine, so I would just try to give it a bit of a bath and see. It does get heavier when it gets wet, so you might have to be careful in terms of how you block it. But yeah, give it a Google search and see what comes up. But since you can wash it in a washing machine, I would make the assumption that it can handle water, and that should be okay, at least for an experiment. You can always knit a little swatch to see how your particular yarn handles being wet. I annoyed a teacher in high school when I wrote everything in purple biro. When challenged, I responded that his blackboard writing was chicken scratching. I changed to blue and he improved his writing. At least you both changed. That is, I was worried where that story was gonna go. I have mixed experience of how receptive teachers are to input, but it's good to hear that some do take input. It was before I learned that I needed glasses, because I mean, as a child you're just used to whatever you're doing, you're used to whatever your body's doing, you think everything that is around you is sort of normal, because that is your only experience. So I didn't realize that I needed glasses, because I could sit in the classroom and I would follow the arm movement of the teacher, which were much larger than, you know, them writing on the blackboard, and I would write my notes like that by watching their arm. But I couldn't read the blackboard at all. But it took me squinting at the television at home before anyone realized that maybe this child can't actually see all that well. And then they got me glasses, and I was amazed, because suddenly suddenly the gravel in the driveway had individual pebbles that I could see, and you know, the trees in the distance had individual leaves that I could look at, and I was just sitting out and just watching stuff because I was just amazed at all this detail that I had gotten just used to not seeing, because I didn't know that wasn't normal. I remember the 2 good teachers who helped me throughout schools, and that was our librarian and my 6th grade history teacher. That woman was godsend. Without her, I would never have graduated. Yeah, it's okay to critique the institution and the bad ones, but I think it's also very nice and important to remember the good ones, the one who really try, and those are the ones that I like thinking about and remembering, because they make such an enormous difference. There is one teacher who cared so much that I have, I think, once or twice I have sent her flowers with a card thanking her for what an amazing teacher she was to me in junior high, because she made such a big impact. And that is generally how I try to do anything, is, you know, give good feedback as well as the bad, because it's very easy to look at the bad things, isn't it? But there are a lot of good things out there as well. my 6th grade teacher was the one who noticed I was more hands-on with learning than visual or auditory learning. Yeah, the good ones noticed that. And I think before we had like a lot more leeway in terms of teaching. You had teachers who were able to send people out on a recess if they needed to get some of that nervous energy out of their system, just run around for a little bit and then come back in and sit down and learn more. I hope teachers still have that opportunity. I don't know. I get the impression that things get more and more like you have to sit still and follow, but I think people are trying more and more to appreciate that people learn in different ways, and some people need different tools and visual aids, and you can't explain something the same way to everyone. I think we've all experienced, there was a maths professor at one of the universities I went to, and if you asked how the thing worked, he would just say exactly the same thing he had just said, but slower, which was not helpful at all. I was the one who read the whole textbook right away. I loved learning. Yeah, I did in the beginning, but I got yelled at so much for doing that. Because, you ruined your own homework according to them, and you made the job for the teacher more difficult, so you got discouraged from doing that. So I would just sit and stare out the window instead, which you also get yelled at for, so it's difficult to appease everyone. But wow, you mean your homework wasn't given one day for the next? Generally don't. Not, if I remember correctly. Generally, homework was given from week to week, so you would get like a list. Or from lesson to lesson, because you didn't have the same lessons every day. But a lot of the time, at least in secondary school, which is what I remember better, I don't really remember primary school, it would be, for next week, you're doing this, this, and this. And then you would get a list for the different classes that you were doing. Same with university as well, and high school and junior high were all pretty similar. Like here, you would attend classes and people would talk about, this is what's coming next week, this is the test, this is whatever. But from one day to the next, generally not. Which is where I had to admit that I didn't really do my homework, unless I really had to. Because again, I had some smarts and I just would get away with whatever I could get away with. So I would do I would write essays on the bus, I would write them in recess right before class, I would not do it at home, I would do them at school, or I would just improvise when asked. When a teacher asked a question, because I learned that I could get away with it. I could just sit and the teacher could just ask me about the question from last week and I could just improvise and answer it. Which did nothing for my work habits. It was, when I came to university and I couldn't do that anymore, I couldn't just improvise the answers. Things got suddenly a lot harder, and you had to develop those work habits without having, when the university kind of expects that you have them already, but a lot of people don't. So that has been a continual fight to learn good work ethics and work habits and work ways to get work done. And yeah, it's again where good teachers were important, because I started doing homework for the classes where you had the good teachers who actually paid attention, who actually followed through and actually noticed when you didn't. But a lot of them didn't. A lot of them you could just sort of coast on by in the background and they didn't really notice because they were busy and overwhelmed with the students who were much louder, so you could sort of just be invisible and not be very noticeable, which is again a thing that is difficult for teachers. And a lot of them talk about that some students are so loud and take so much attention that you're not really able to give attention to the ones who also need it but are a lot more quiet about their needs. School is difficult all around, like putting a lot of energetic children in the same room and trying to teach them things is a difficult task. It's a bit of a tall order, isn't it? But these teachers really do their very best to teach a lot of them, at least, like, again, the good ones. There were certainly those who were very tired of annoying children and just wanted to go home and have a lie down, but there were a lot of good ones too. So bad child here, I suppose, in that way, because I learned that I could get away with not doing homework, so a lot of the times I didn't. But it's difficult trying to teach a lot of different children the same thing, but yeah, we always go up on these tangents, don't we, whenever we do these lives about mental health and schooling, and last time it was Linux and computer and IT safety, and I have fun with a lot of these different things. At least I have learned from the first lives to try to occasionally take breaks and drink my tea and let the silence be silence a little bit. That is uncomfortable sometimes, isn't it? Like being able to sit in that silence and not get nervous about it. Your daughter wonders what I'm making and how I'm so good at it. Since me love. Well, thank you. That is very nice. I was supposed to be darning my socks, but I didn't want to do that, so I didn't. So I picked up some white yarn in the same thickness as the shawl that I made, and I guess now I've started a little shawl in white. So it's going to be a similar type of thing. I'm not sure yet if I'm going to do it in one pattern for the entire thing just for simplicity, or if I'm going to keep jumping back and forth. I do like jumping back and forth, so I probably will get tired of this pattern eventually. But yeah, it's let's see if you can see this. This is the snowflake pattern. I think this is a little bit too dense than the one in the pattern, but kinda can see that there are like 6 little dots in a circle and makes a little kind of snowflake. And I think they're really cute and they're really simple, so I can do that. But how I'm so good at it? I guess practice. I mean, I learned knitting from my grandmother when I was very young, so I've had many years to struggle and learn and pick up a little new technique here and there, and yeah, it becomes habit. But it's always difficult to learn a new skill, but I think I was 6 or 7 when my grandma, no, I must have been, had I started school? I don't actually remember, but I was certainly in single digits when I started knitting with my grandmother, who was very lovely and very patient and a very good teacher. Speaking of teachers, she was always laughing, and you know, she didn't mind that I started to knit left-handed. She just wanted you to make things, wanted to share a moment of knitting onto things together, you know, both sitting on the couch in companionable silence, making things. And if that was embroidery or if that was knitting, it didn't really matter. It was that nice sharing of doing things. Your bed is finally calling to you. Well, good night. It is nice to share some moments with one another. But yeah, my grandmother was a good teacher in that respect. She didn't care how you did a thing as long as you had fun doing a thing, and I think that is an important point that we tend to forget when we want everything, you know, all our projects to be perfect. And that is something that I find with myself as well. I have this tendency to, whenever I want to make something, I've usually been of the, like, not consciously, but subconsciously, I've been like, yeah, but you should try to learn a new technique, you should try to learn a new pattern, you should try to learn, you know, always new, always. And it's nice and fun to learn things, but sometimes it's also very nice to just use a technique that you already know, use a pattern that is fairly simple, and just be able to just create, sometimes also without that pressure of always learning a new thing and always stretching yourself and always pushing yourself. And I think there's a balance, because I really enjoy both learning, but also being able to take a break and just go, no, I want to do something easy today. Good morning. I'm setting up the spinning wheel outside and hoping to get about an hour of spinning and listening today. That sounds lovely. It's finally getting to weather to be outside, and we have a tiny, like a narrow strip of flower bed outside the place where we're renting that we are allowed to play with landlord. And I was out weeding it the other weekend, and it was really nice just sitting, you know, a bit of an overcast afternoon with my sun hat and my sunglasses, and just sitting in the grass and listening to nature and having a good time. It's nice to be able to be a little bit more outside again without having to wear all the layers, although I like that as well. I tend to want fresh techniques with every pattern too. I blame Elizabeth Zimmerman. Yeah, exactly. So I feel like there's a balance, because wanting to learn something new every time is fine if that is truly what you enjoy, but sometimes I just want like a creative rest, and to be able to just talk with friends or talk to you, or just sit and enjoy the act of being creative, with not always having to push myself creatively and in terms of skills. Sometimes you just make the thing, and that is nice in and of itself. But I will say there is something to be said for lace knit patterns that are so simple that you can sort of look at your pattern and go, ah, yes, this is the next step. Because with the complicated ones, where you always have to refer back to the pattern to see what comes next, because it's too big, like too complicated to hold in your head all the time, you can't just zone out and just knit and talk and do that, because it's a bit too complicated. But with this, you definitely can. And this one fit ever so nicely within the 4 stitches increase per round that I'm almost tempted to write it down, because they fit without half snowflakes or anything. But it's good to hear that other people have a similar attitude towards making things, and that it's easy to get drawn into that perpetual new technique or perpetual new skill thing without ever actually just letting yourself appreciate the skills that you've accumulated so far. Which a balance between both, I think it is nice. I get bored with always following patterns, so I eventually start improvising. I like the collections of small repeatable crochet patterns. Embroidery is fun to improvise too. Yeah, I can also tend to get a little bit bored if it's the same, like at the end of this sweater with all the leaves. And these leaves were big enough that I needed the pattern to refer back to. I didn't know it entirely by heart. I did get tired of it, but I could also see what it would become, so I would pick up an hour here and an hour there, and eventually we would get there with other creative pursuits in between. Good morning. Good morning to you too. Nice to see more and more people joining us. Exactly, lace knitting is so easy to read unless you accidentally start knitting into your nups. I'm not familiar with that word. Do you mean like the edges or something like that? But yeah. I enjoy lace knit because whenever I do color work, no matter how much I try to keep everything loose, if I knit socks or anything, I struggle to get them over the ankle. They just get tight. I guess for a shawl it wouldn't really matter, and for some things you can get away with that, but it just ends up being a little bit denser. But it's very nice for really warm cardigans and sweaters because you have double the wool in the same amount of space, which is amazing. And for a cardigan you don't really need it to be super stretchy, so it wouldn't be a problem. And I've seen some really glorious ones. But Estonian flat bobbles. Okay. Yeah, that would be bad if you get your lace knit into bobbles. That would get a bit confusing. They used them to increase weights of finished shawls that were sold by weight. Interesting. Huh. I knew about little lead weights, like little strings of lead weight being put in curtains to keep them hanging straight, but I wasn't aware that they put them in shawls because they were sold by weight. That is such an interesting piece of knowledge, seeing as I enjoy a shawl being really nice and light, whereas here presumably the wool amount and how warm they were made them by weight. That is such an interesting local specialty. That is really cool. Thank you for sharing that. And this is what I'm talking about. 1 hour in and we already have good 10 centimeters maybe of lace shawl, whereas when you get a little bit further you'd be hard pressed to do this much in an hour. Well, not even. You'd be like a couple of rounds, but it is very fast in the beginning, which is very nice, but not always the case. Yeah, I hope everyone is having a good time. It's very nice and calm. I am still a bit tired from the video that got released yesterday. It was a lot of work, but it was a lot of fun. And on Monday we get to start on something new. I haven't really decided what yet, but I'm sure something will. Well, from the many ideas in the pile, there will be something that we will do, and it'll be fun and it'll be good. My computer is being very loud. I think the streaming is a bit much for the machine, but I hope it isn't too disruptive. I think the microphone is far enough away that it shouldn't be too bad. They're also really pretty. I found out about Napt and Estonian lace knitting from Knitty publishing the Aeolian shawl. That is really cool. It's really cool to see how different cultures do different their wearables and knitting and shawls and local traditions that influence how they do things. It's so many cool things. Hello, I just started crafting, just turned 60. Well, welcome to the club. It's fun to make things, and there are so many crafts to learn and have fun with and play around with, so you are welcome here. It's never too late to learn anything, and especially now that we have the internet and we can find videos of things teaching us things. In any sort of skill we might imagine, whenever I look up lace diagrams and I look for new lace diagrams online to get inspired by, I always find Japanese stitch books with these super intricate, super delicate, just really, really meticulous and gorgeous patterns that are just so amazing. There are so many extremely skilled people out there making things just magically with their hands. It's just amazing what people can do with just very simple materials. Think about that when I see woodworking videos as well, you know, people making dovetail joints and really pretty carpentry and furniture making, and when you think that it just came from a piece of wood is really quite magical. And blacksmithing as well, taking something from the earth and making a new thing. It's amazing what people can do. Paper mache as well, as in terms of really cool techniques. Yeah, there are so many cool crafts out there. We had a neighbor once who made, is it applique? Not for fabric, not like quilting, but like with paper, like scrapbooking I think it's called, who would make these really, really pretty greeting cards and gift tags and just cards in general, and boxes for gifts, and they were so amazing. She gave us a couple and we still have them. We don't want to use the gift tag for like and lose them, so we just sort of reuse them every year and give them back and forth because they're so beautiful. It takes so much time and just such skill and just really meticulous, carefully cut out work. Yeah, I think they're so amazing. People are amazing when it comes to creating things and making things, and just in general. I own a Japanese stitch dictionary, only utilize some of the more simple twisted stitch patterns though. Yeah, I can imagine that they would get complicated quite fast. It's so amazing. Collage is also a word for it. She called it scrapbooking, but collage is also a similar. But yeah, super pretty. And she had a lot of fun with it, which is the most important thing, I think. That you get to create something with your hands. I mean, they see this time and time again, that making things and doing things with your hands keeps, like, there is a very literal connection between your hands and your brain, and making things keeps your brain healthy. The research on that is quite astounding, but it makes sense when you think about where we came from, always making things, always making and using tools, always learning and touching and investigating, and yeah, it's good for everyone to make things and feel that sense of accomplishment when you're making things. It's very different from answering emails and doing admin work on a computer, which is very important and needs to get done, but there is no physical manifestation to show you the work that you've done. And sometimes that can be a bit difficult. You'd be like, oh, I did so much work today, but there is no tangible proof that you did, and sometimes that is a bit difficult for our brain to comprehend. Whereas when you're making a thing, when you're knitting or crocheting or spinning, there is this real actual proof in the world that you changed this thing into something else, that I think is really, really cool. I was supposed to pour myself more tea, and yet I just keep knitting. You know, that just another round syndrome. Just one more round, just one more round. They're so fast at this stage anyway, it's hard to resist, you know, it doesn't take that long to go from one end of my knitting needles to the other. And I already had my interchangeable needles set up with the longest wire that I have and my biggest needles. Although I suppose they're not technically my biggest needles yet. I saw in the care package from our friend's mother who passed away, we got a lot of stuff from their apartment as they're cleaning it out, that I now have some, I think they were 7mm circular needles. So now I have even bigger needles than that for even airier lace shawls and fun. And speaking of spinning, how many wheels in your flock? Now, if you think how many spinning wheels I have none. There was a spinning wheel in the video, but that was because we were adventuring out to other places. That living room that you saw in that video where I traveled back and forth with the basket with the view of the elk and the cranes, that was not the living room where we reside. That was somewhere we were visiting. So that is not mine. I have 2 spindles. 2 wooden spindles, one with a rock weight and one with a wood weight that is like spindle and weight all in one. I don't have a spinning wheel because we used to have to take into consideration how much space they take up, so although I really want at some point a loom with which to weave fabrics, that is a very, very big, if you're familiar with Norwegian looms, they are the size of double beds. And really tall, really big, really wide. They are very, very space demanding. And I don't really have anywhere to put it. And of course, when you weave, there's a lot of dust in the air, a lot of fibers that get kicked about. So you don't really want a lot of other things, certainly not computers in the room. Because they will get clogged up with the fibers that you are weaving with, so it can be a challenge what else to put in a room with a loom, because they are very, very dusty. But one day I hope to do that. But so far I can get short, like narrow fabrics with my rigid heddles. I have 2 of them, and I learned at some point that you can do herringbone and diamond twill with 2 rigid heddles, which is quite fun. I was quite lucky with my rigid heddles. I have one, like the holes in the middle have this slightly elongated, slightly oval, and it's just enough that when you do the shed on the heddle at the back, you transfer it through the first one and sort of get your hands through the shed and pick out your threads. And that was just luck on my part that allowed me to do that. But yeah, you can do diamond twill and herringbone on rigid heddles. You just need 2 of them, and the luck that, you know, slightly oval holes for the first one so that you can see the back shed, which was really cool. I made some really fun leg wraps for some of my Viking reenactor friends that way, and it's quite fast and quite fun. See if we can do this without being too loud. Yeah, you were wondering about the wheel in the video? Apparently many people were. They thought it was my living room. I tried to illustrate it by having the basket travel around, but it's difficult to talk about these things without saying it out loud. But yeah, that is not our living room. That is a different living room that we visited for a while, and that was why I started the shawl in the first place, because I needed something simple to take with me that would be a craft I could do the entire time that we were there. That wasn't, you know, work, because I was supposed to be taking some time off, difficult and impossible as that may sound. But I do find this kind of knitting restful, so I was allowed to bring my knitting project. And then when we came back, I didn't really have anything else lined up that I could get started on in a hurry. So I ended up marathon knitting on the shawl the second week when we were home again, and then that became the video. Because I didn't have the brain space to do anything else, and yeah, I just ended up knitting on the shawl for 12 hours a day, which was interesting. Not quite what I had in mind. This will not be one of those shawls. This will be a nice, calm evening after work and live streaming shawl where I am allowed to spend weeks and months making it, because there is no timeline of a video to get out. You are not allowed to become a video. You hear me? No. Madam Stomach, why are you rumbling? I apologize if it shows through the microphone. I have had breakfast, so I'm not sure why it's so upset, but it could be like that sometimes. Nice. Spindle spinning is somehow more soothing than spinning a wheel. I haven't actually tried yet. I have them, and I have ordered some wool, but I haven't started yet. But we have some cunning plans coming. Hopefully this summer, I think. We are going to try some experiments, as one does, with some friends. So time will tell if that will become something. Hopefully, because it's always fun to see someone try something for the first time and being a beginner again. So I hope that it's going to become a video, and that is the plan, but we shall see how we shall see how things go, if I'm a good student or if I'm just not getting how it works. It's amazing what backstrap weavers can do with rigid heddles. It really is. I've again seen some South American, Native Americans who weave backstrap in these most amazing geometric patterns, and also in Asia you've seen them do backstrap weaving, and it's just the patterns and the work and the amazing results that they get in the end is just so cool. Certainly a lot more skill than I have, but there's so many talented people out there. Do you have a guild hall? Our spinners and weavers group has equipment set up for members to use to try or hire before you purchase your own. I don't belong to any guild. I know there are some crafting groups around here who do have. There is actually a group here who have looms set up, because they do take up a lot of space in an old schoolhouse that I could join if I wanted to. This is quite common, that you will have a communal space set out for looms because they take up so much space in people's homes and apartments, but I haven't had the time to join them. There's so many things going on, but I know there is a place where you wouldn't rent equipment, you would, because the looms are big and stationary, but you can come and you can do things. And I know people also come there, even if they have looms of their own, they will come there because the warping wheel is also a really big piece of equipment that takes up a lot of space. So this communal hall with the looms will have a warping mill, and people will come there to set up their warp and then carefully pack it and bring it home and set up their loom at home, because that is at least they only need the loom in that case, and not both the loom and the warping mill, which can be this big wheel that takes up as much space as the loom, and then suddenly you have two pieces of equipment the size of a double bed to fit into a house, which is not very helpful. So I know a lot of people use communal warping mills for that, which is very nice to share that kind of equipment, because how often do you use the warping mill if you have one person with a little loom? You only need it when you're setting up your loom, and then you have days and days of nice weaving to look forward to, so many people can get a lot of use out of one warping mill. Yeah, I really want to do twill on my rigid heddle. My goal, trademark, is to weave enough of a fabric that I can make a skirt out of it. That would be so cool. I have thought about the similar things. I've seen people do bags, and I think people do jackets as well in these narrow strips of fabric. That would be really cool. I have in the Techniques of Tablet Weaving by Collingwood, there are some really cool examples of people doing that, and it's so amazing. Even if tablet weaving is not rigid heddle, it's still really cool. I always wanted to get into weaving, but have not been in one place long enough to have all the tools and materials to do any type of weaving. What would be a compact one that travels well? Yeah, exactly. When I was a student, a loom was completely out of the question because they are far too big. But two looms that travel well are rigid heddle, where again you can get a rigid heddle loom. I've seen them. I've never actually used them. I have been doing backstrap weaving all of my time, where you basically just have your warp and you tie it to something like a table leg or something like that, and you have your warp and you have your you tie a strap around your waist, hence the backstrap weaving. I always tell people to tie it around their waist, not their back, because the lower back is fragile and prone to pains and hurtings, so just put it around your hips. They are much sturdier. And then you have a rigid heddle in between, or tablet weaving cards or something like that. They are very portable and very small. It was a very student-friendly hobby to get into, because I had similar issues where I needed to keep things small and portable and fit into my suitcases so that it didn't become a problem when I needed to go anywhere. But yeah, rigid heddles and tablet weaving can both be done with very little equipment and not a full loom. So I think that is a fun way to do that. Ashford has a rigid heddle called Knitter's Loom that folds in two. I'm sure there are options from other brands as well. Yeah, I see more and more come out with smaller, more compact looms and table looms and things like that. So things are coming. Things are getting a lot more compact. Oh, my tea. Good thing this is not the first brew, or you would be quite bitter. But there are options out there. There are, and a lot of the new, like Ashford especially. I mean, that's a luxury. If ever when I browse Ashford looms, they are gorgeous. They're so pretty. They're pretty penny, but so pretty. And they are much smaller than what I'm used to. But really, really pretty and well made. I hear good things about the people who actually have them. But far out of my price range at the moment. But there are so many good things that are available for people with limited spaces these days. So there are options if you want to weave but don't have space for an entirely separate room for a loom. Yes, exactly. Laverne Waddington has shown some crazy wool weaving she's learned on her blog. Yeah, there are so many cool things. And when we show each other, other people get to do cool things and everybody wins. There is no losing here. I don't have the attitude where things should be kept secret or within the family, or I just like to show people cool things and hope that you make cool things, and hopefully you don't want to copy exactly what I'm doing, but you see what I'm doing and you go, I can use this technique to do this other thing that I've been wanting to do, and then suddenly it grows and expands, and then I can learn something cool that you did, and everything just gets more amazing. Everybody wins. Some multi-shaft table looms are foldable too, but those tend to be very pricey. Yeah, the ones I've seen have certainly been on the pricier side, and that is the thing, especially with new things. I mean, in Norway, you could get very, very pretty, very usable looms, almost thrown after you, a lot of them for free online, because people don't want them. People don't want looms, they don't... Why are you here? You're not supposed to be here. People are getting them out of their house because, again, they take up a lot of space. So you find them used for free, and that makes it very hard for me to be like, Ashford looms are certainly worth it, like the price point is reasonable for the quality items that they are, but when I can just get something that does the same job for free secondhand, that makes it very difficult for me to splurge on something that is more compact and certainly quality, but there's just something in me that really struggles with that when I see other items not getting love that could. But yeah, there are many space-saving options out there. Sounds neat. I may eventually look into them, add another project to the endless list. Exactly. It's always more projects to learn. Compact, light, and fits in a luggage, or setups that can easily be reconstructed anywhere. That is what I like of hand sewing, crochet, and embroidery. I'm the same. I really like portable projects. It's one of the reasons I also like tatting and knitting and needle binding, is that they're all fairly compact. They don't take up a lot of space. They can be stuffed in a bag and, you know, brought with you to whatever project you're doing. And I too like, that's one of the reasons I haven't got a spinning wheel or a loom, is because they are bigger and they are harder to bring with you. I really like compact, small projects that are very portable. I just find that very, very nice. And I mean, with as many crafts as I want to learn, I can't have all the big things in my poor little workroom, there would be no space left to do things. Ashford makes beautiful objects. Yes, they really do. They're so pretty. Their access to Silver Beach and their quality craftsmanship make me love New Zealand even more than Lord of the Rings did. Yeah, I can understand that. There's many things to love about New Zealand. We get some Kiwis on the live occasionally, and it's so pretty. You always get told that New Zealand and Norway are very similar because I think we're one of the I think it's the only places that had, you know, that whole glaciers retracting from the land, digging these deep grooves that turn into fjords. That geologically there aren't a lot of them, like you need to be close to either of the poles, the South Pole or the North Pole, for that to happen. And that was quite similar in that respect. So the landscape is a little bit similar in that respect. But yeah, it's who doesn't love the landscape of New Zealand after watching The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings? Like, amazing, so lush and green and wonderful and just gorgeous. I had to Google what a rigid heddle was. I think my mother has what's called a table loom. She uses them for tapestries. Yeah, there are a couple of different table looms for different things. For ribbon weaving, they look different than if you're doing tapestry, but they're really cool. They're really portable and nice, and I really like that it makes it easy for people to do things without having to have like really, really big equipment. An EEW Nano easily fits in a handbag with space to spare. I'm not sure what that is, but I will believe you. There are many things that can fit into a handbag that, so long as they're not sharp or intimidating to anyone, you can bring them with you. But yeah, having had to move several times with just, you know, 2 big suitcases, the maximum allowed on an airplane, I have learned a bit too much to just throw things away when I move or just give them to a secondhand shop, because I will just find a new secondhand shop when I land and replenish some of those less personal things. But yeah, it's nice to be able to bring crafts with you without too much effort. Hi, tired, so I may just lurk. You are welcome to lurk. We welcome lurkers. It's no problem, so long as everyone is having a good time chilling. Oh, electric eel wheel. It's a brand of e-spinners. Oh, cool. Yeah. We know a couple of people who use those e-spinners. I've seen people who used to spin on a regular spinning wheel, and then they had an accident and they got in a wheelchair, and of course they couldn't use their legs to spin anymore, and now they have a little e-spinner so they can still spin even though they can't physically do the same movement on the spinning wheels. I think that is really cool. It's really accommodating, and it's really nice that is an opportunity for people. What, didn't the electric spinning wheel get invented by someone who lived on a boat or something? Because they had very limited space, but they wanted to spin, so they made something that could do it for them on a very tiny scale. But yeah, super cool. Yes, indeed, geology major here, and you have it spot on. Amazing. I'm glad I remembered right. I thought it was New Zealand. I remember learning that fjords are made in 2 places of the world, and Norway is obviously one of them since I live here, and I thought New Zealand was the other one, but I wasn't sure. Could have been one of the other countries close to either the North or the South Pole. Reassuring that my memory is not failing me entirely. Electric eel wheel. I love that name. That is so fun. Good morning, or whatever it is where you are, all of you. Late morning coffee and knitting soft washing cloths here. That sounds very nice. I'm working on a shawl because I am irredeemable, and I had just cast one off and we're going to start a new one, but this is going to take me a lot longer to make. A lot longer to make. No more 2-week marathon. I do not recommend that. It's not the best way to spend 2 weeks. But as a slow, leisurely project, I do recommend. Let's see. Yes, e-spinners are incredible for accessibility. I can't threadle for disability reasons either, and I thought I couldn't spin until I found out they existed from someone's video. Yes, exactly. More crafts, more fun for everyone. That is, I see no downside here, literally no downside. It's more fun for everyone. The full-size electric eel wheel has huge bobbins though, so you can just keep going. Oh, that sounds nice. Because I understand that is part of the problem when you're spinning, is that when you're getting into a groove, but then your spindle is full and you have to unwind it, start over. But yeah, so many fun crafts, so little time. It's all the things that we want to do and more. I've even seen people who will have like a little holder online where they crochet one-handed, where they can sort of put the crochet hook in a rigid spot like in a clamp, and then they sort of crochet around it. It was super creative, so clever to be able to figure out how to do that. People are just so creative. Yeah, it's the theme of the day, I think. People are creative, and that is amazing to watch them make accommodations for themselves and make ways that make things easier for them to do, and helping everyone else around them at the same time, because now suddenly you could show it to someone else who might also benefit from knowing that you could do it in that way, and you don't have to do it in the way that everyone else is doing it. The black shawl was huge. The later pearl rows must have taken insanely long. They did. They took a while. I tried timing it, but I mean, how fast I would knit would depend a lot on how I was feeling at the time and various factors. So why is there only one? It's the problems of talking to you while I'm knitting, is that I'm not paying as much attention as I should, so I need to rectify things, but luckily we can do that. Yeah, I tried timing it and it was about half an hour, I think, towards the end, that it would take for around 20 minutes, half an hour, somewhere in that, but it would depend on how tired I was or how focused I was. Sometimes I could knit really fast and sometimes I would just go along at a leisurely pace, like now, and that would obviously take longer, but at least with the purl rows I didn't actually have to think about any pattern. I just zone out and just do my thing. But yeah, it got a little bit bigger than I thought it would. It's like I know intellectually that when you block airy lace knits with big needles, they do get bigger, but I always underestimate just how big they get. I should swatch that and do some math, but I just want to do the thing. I just want to do the craft. I can't crochet or knit, but I can hand sew. I'm working on patchwork pockets tonight. That is lovely. And we've talked about that earlier today as well, but I think there should be no pressure for everyone to learn everything. There is just no reason. If you like to learn and acquire crafts, then have fun with it, do it, do your thing. But I think it's also a lot of fun to have a world where, oh, you like to do this thing, I like to do this thing, let us make things for each other and trade, and everybody wins, everybody gets something they want. And I just really love having a house where I'm like, oh, this was a gift from this person, this was a gift from this person. Just makes me feel all warm and cuddly and cozy inside to be surrounded by these physical manifestations of love, someone making a thing for you. I just think that is amazing. And then they can be amazed by your skill at this craft that they can't do, and you can be amazed at their skill at something you don't know how to do, and just everybody wins. I see no downside to this. My big crochet shawl builds up in the same triangular way, and boy, at this point it takes 2 hours per row. Yeah, exactly. They start out really fast, but as soon as they get some width to them, there are so many stitches per row that, yeah, there's one really nice thing with, these days having things like stitch stoppers, and of course when I learned to knit, we didn't have any of these things. That makes me feel old, but you were just stuff your knitting needles straight into the ball of yarn as the stitch stopper, and that usually worked. It was usually not a problem. But stitch stoppers are very cute. I do enjoy these little jack-o'-lantern pumpkins. They are super, super cute and very useful. I do like them. And but yeah, there are many different ways to the same goal. There's no reason why everyone needs to be on the same road. Triangular shawls look awesome until you realize how much yarn and time they take. Yeah, but they're fun though. It's the same recipe all the time, so I can just let my brain zone out a bit and do its thing. Sewing is the hardest of the fiber arts. Mad respect to everyone who can make it look like it wasn't a Cro-Magnon man who sewed it. Exactly. We all admire people doing the skills that we don't have, and I think that is a good thing. That's that appreciation. It doesn't cost anything, and you can trade finished items, and everyone is amazed, and everyone is just, yeah. Practice just like any other craft, yeah. Most of the things can come back to practice, but if you genuinely don't like or don't want to learn a skill, then why not just trade? Trade crafts with someone who can, and then everyone gets something that they want. Cork's handy, also in knitting on the move. I learned on straight needles, yeah. Double point needles, when you make socks and stuff, I just curl it up or like wind it up and hope that it stays where it's supposed to, because there are just too many pointy ends to stop up all of them. Although I have seen people make these little, I guess it's like two little wooden rounds with a little hollow on the inside, so it becomes like a cork, and then there's an elastic or something in between, and they put the double point needles inside, and then you have the cork on either end, and all 5 of the double point needles get pushed together. It's hard to explain without having a visual aid, but I've seen those made by some woodworkers, and they're really clever. It makes it easier for you to put it in your bag without fearing for your project's life. I recently finished a New Zealand themed lace shawl for my sister. She got the wool on her holiday at the Ashford village in New Zealand. I spun it on my Ashford wheels, and the pattern was made by a New Zealander. That is so amazing. That is so many steps interchanged in between all the different things. That is so cool. I'm sure it will be a very well appreciated and well loved gift. That is so amazing. I love crocheting and tried knitting once, but prefer crochet. But make something and then don't know what to do with it, so I either give it away or unravel it to make something else. Yeah, that happens sometimes. I find that I make the best stuff when I am giving it to someone, because then I feel like I have a little bit more of a deadline, like you're going to show it to someone, give it to someone, they will appreciate it, and then I prioritize finishing it. Whereas when I'm just making it for myself, I'm kind of like meh. I guess these days I have the excuse of trying to make it into a video to show you guys, which does help, but I also used to struggle with, if I can't just give it to someone, what do I actually want to make? What are we actually going to do? I'm always up for trading. Cerebral palsy does make my sewing a bit slow. Yeah, but you're doing it. Who cares if it's slow? You're much faster than someone who isn't doing it at all. It's amazing that you still do, and like, we don't all have to be fast. It's not a competition to knit the fast. I know there used to be and have been knitting competition to knit the fastest, but I think enjoying the craft is the most important. We don't have to be fast. I see this with people who have to like defend English throwing, English knitting as well, because people are always like, oh, continental knitting is faster, why don't you? And it's like, because I enjoy knitting this way and this is how I learned. Like, why? We don't always have to be the fastest in the class to enjoy craft. You can just do it because you have fun. Of course, I have some deadlines with the videos, but you don't have to have a deadline. You don't have to be fast. You still made a thing out of resources. I was gonna say out of nothing, but I mean it isn't out of nothing, it is out of other tools, but you made the thing from another thing that wouldn't exist in the world if you hadn't made it. That alone is amazing. Like, that alone is worth celebrating and acknowledging and having fun with. There's no reason to feel like you should be faster. Good morning, felling seams on latest project in my car, waiting for stores to open for some last minute shopping before event packing. That sounds crazy. Do plans ever hold to not crutch the last days? I don't think so. I don't think they do. Here in Norway, most shops are closed on Sundays, so you don't have that opportunity. If you wanted it, you just have to be like, well, if you didn't go grocery shopping on Saturday and you want stuff, I guess you'll have to wait until Monday anyway. And you just get used to that. There are fabric double point needle keepers also with pressed studs poppers to close around the knitting. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense that you would have a little pouch at either end and then just sort of a clip in the middle. That would work. That would work really well, and just keep it open and like for the knitting to peek out. That I could make that. No. I could. Are we going to? Maybe. We'll see. That sounds like a bit of a fun gift. That would be a useful gift to a knitter friend, to have a little bit of a help to stop needles from popping off. Might have to look into that. Hi from Tasmania, Australia. Hello, welcome. We are having fun talking about all sorts of things. Your partner lives very close to the Ashford place, and I'm always mad that I took up spinning after the last time I was in New Zealand. Aww. I can understand that. But there's always a next time, hopefully. Fingers crossed. You're so much faster than someone not sewing at all. So true. It's lovely that you obviously genuinely mean that. Well, yeah. Because why wouldn't I? It's... Yeah, I don't understand people trying to disregard something because you aren't fast enough. That is some hyper-capitalism stuff going on there. You're doing the thing, aren't you? And you're having fun. So you're winning. I don't see the argument for anything else, especially when you're doing it as a hobby in your free time. Free time is supposed to be enjoyable. It's supposed to be your time to unwind and rest and do things you enjoy. There's no reason there should be any pressure associated with that. I need my pockets finished to use at fair in June. I'm always working to an event deadline and always more to make. Felt seams are neat. Yeah, that's... Sometimes there are external deadlines, but there's usually a reason for that. But if you're just doing it as a hobby, no reason. I find that with the friends worth keeping, the good ones, like... there have been times when gifts haven't been done in time, and I will either like give a card or something and like have a little photo or something to show, or a little drawing being like, this is a thing that I am making for you. It isn't done yet, but it will be, and happy birthday or whatever, and Merry Tuesday whenever it's done. And they really enjoy it when it's done. If people get impatient with that, I find that I won't make them a second thing. They just don't bother with that. It's not worth it. Just have fun making things. There's too much pressure in the world already. I make yarn ball cozies for portable knitting or crochet, as taking a wooden bowl in the project bag is too heavy when using more than one yarn color or fiber. Yeah, I don't bring this yarn bowl when I go take my project bag with me because it is too heavy. That is why I like the spiral, so I can just pop my yarn out. It has these holes too, but then my yarn would be stuck, so I generally just pop it out there when I need to travel anywhere, because it is a bit heavy. But yeah, it's many solutions to many. I didn't used to have yarn bowl. I just would use a regular bowl or none at all. But it was a gift, so it's very nice to use it when I have it, because again, I like looking at things and being like, this was someone loved me enough to get me this thing and thought about me, so I get some joy when I look at it. Something I've learned is that it's okay to ask for help when finishing a project if you're struggling, especially when physical limitations get in the way. Absolutely. So much so. That is... yeah. There's no harm in asking for help. Especially if you can't finish the project, then, I mean, that is so much better than... and sometimes you just need a little bit of encouragement, like a little bit of, yeah, you can do it, but sometimes you genuinely need help, and yeah. It's always nice to be the one being asked for help, and always a little bit more difficult asking to get the help, but it's so amazing that, you know, we can do that and practice that and things like that. Why are we upside down? Insert obvious Bernadette into chat in terms of being allowed to work slow, because I mean, she really loves hand sewing and that is not the fastest craft in the world, and yeah, it's nice to have more people who are not perfectionistic, and her projects are really amazing. It's so nice to see her encourage hand sewing and slow crafts and appreciating and inviting experts to talk about things that they know, and just, yeah, so nice to have people sharing their knowledge. And she's so good at inviting experts to her channel to showcase skills and knowledge and things. In terms of felt stitches, yeah, fair enough. I do like to fell things as well. It's nice to feel like it's nice and done, and yeah. But yeah, her projects are amazing. They're really, really cool. But I really appreciate the talks that she has with experts when she invites professors and lecturers in different fields to talk about a very, very specific narrow field in fashion history. Like, those are so interesting and exciting, and yeah, it just gets all my geeky parts excited, and like my brain just goes, yes, here is things I didn't know already. This is so cool. I want to learn about the history of the pocket and you know, talking about health and hygiene and care in the past, because people in the past were not. We have this bias to think that we are the civilized ones, and our current culture that we live in is the most civilized one and the best one. But people weren't stupid in the past. If we got to talk to people of the past, I think you would find that they are just as clever and just as reasoning and just as, you know, able to reason and find good solutions for themselves. So there's no reason they wouldn't be solving problems that we assume that they had, in ways that maybe are not how we would solve it today, but are just as functional and just as clever. And yeah, I find that if you think about other people as clever and capable, it's so helpful in terms of trying to think about people in the past as not, you know, bumbling buffoons who didn't realize what soap was, but no, these are real human beings who lived at a different time, and they had so many skills and resources and knowledge of things. Of course they were problem solving. Of course they were figuring out how to solve these problems. The IOU gift, item presented when finished. Yeah, exactly. And why not? a handmade item takes so long and will be so cherished and last for so many years, what's a few more weeks or a few more months or whatever it is to finish a thing that will last for years and years? It's so cool. Less stress, you get to hang out, and you can always treat them to food or something. More excuse to hang out, yeah. I had a friend who used to, she was a bit is this the right word? Like she was a little bit airheaded, and she would often forget things when she came visiting, and we would always laugh about it and be like, yeah, but it's just an excuse to come over to fetch the thing, and then I will forget a new thing so that I have another excuse to come visiting, and you just have a perpetual item fetching excuse joke going where everyone is having fun because you have an excuse to visit, and yeah, it's just a fun time. I'm just gonna, pardon me. Oh, first time you ever heard of felt stitches was on her channel. Interesting. That is really interesting. Yeah, it's you never know where new knowledge is gonna come from, or again, you don't know what you don't know. And yeah, I always pick up new things whenever I watch a video about something, and it's usually not what I expect to learn, and yet there is just always something, always a little fascinating tidbit that tickles the brain, and it's just, yeah, learning new things is amazing. Hello from Australia. I just turned on the computer and here we are. Here I am. I've been having fun with this lives and talking to you, and since the first experiment, but I was very anxious and very terrified, but it's been a lot of fun. I'm trying to put into this Discord when I intend to do a live. I've been scared to do that because I never know if I'm gonna have to call in sick and be like, sorry, I can't make it after all, but we are trying to let you guys know when I'm doing a live in the Discord, so that if you want to know when I'm hoping to do a live, you can check that out. There's a little channel where I post that so that you find it. I'll share the link again to the Discord if you want to check that out, but I don't want to schedule them in YouTube to the same extent, because again, I never know if I'm going to be knocked out with a migraine and be sick, and I would be a lot more explaining, I feel, in YouTube, to be like, oh, there was a live scheduled and now it's gone, and what happened, and we were looking forward to it and now we're mad instead, and that is not what I want. I don't want to disappoint people because of that. So I put it in the Discord and we try to schedule it, and there's always this, you know, little asterisk, mentally at least, that I try to schedule so that you can put it in your calendar if you want to, but I may get sick. I may not be able to do the live, and there is that understanding there, and the community is really amazing and supportive. They have been super nice about that caveat, being like, yeah, no, but health is important, and of course that is what I tell you, that is what I tell everyone, and then of course it's always harder to treat yourself the same way, isn't it? You just want to be reliable and do the thing that you promised and not be sick, which I know if you have a chronic illness you can certainly relate to. Just if I could just stop being sick, that would be great. And then real life catches up with you. It's like, yeah, but we are sick, we just have to work around it. And the community is really amazing and supportive in that way, and they are really amazing and supportive with each other and helping each other and encouraging each other, and that is exactly the whole kind of community that I'm hoping to build, and it has been amazing to see people come and be so, you know, gracious with each other, and so in Norwegian we would talk about sort of giving space to each other, like letting people have the space that they need to take up space and to help each other and be nice to each other. And it's really nice to see that people are doing that and trying to build that culture of it's okay. It's okay to be sick. It's okay to take time, that we talked about. It's okay to make mistakes and unravel things and start over, and you don't have to hate on yourself for doing that. You don't have to berate and be mean to yourself. It's just It's just something that happens. It's okay. And of course, I tell that to everyone else, but treating myself the same way is very hard. It's so much harder for some reason to be kind to yourself, and so necessary. So necessary to treat yourself with the same kindness, even if it's hard. What does this represent? Yeah, welcome. That is part of the reason why I wanted to do them at different times throughout. Like 1 week I'll do it at one time, and some weeks at a different time, so that there's a room for being from Europe or from Oceania or Asia or America, so that there is occasionally there is a time slot that works for different people. I know some people just do really, really long lives, but that sounds exhausting and not something I think I have the capacity to do. So I just try to sort of put it in different, slightly different time slots, like once in a while. I found your channel because the algorithm pushed one of your videos under one of Bernadette's video. Ah, you two definitely vibe the same, even though you come from science and she comes from theater. Thank you, that is very nice of you. But yeah, I mean, appreciations for the arts goes everywhere. Like, I see no reason, and we see this, and I heard Bernadette talking about this same thing, but coming from the different angle of, you know, theater and creative arts, because we get sold this ridiculous notion that if you're sciencey, you're not creative, and if you're creative, you're not sciencey and you know, analytical and logical, and it's just absolute nonsense. Absolute nonsense. We've talked about, like, some people comment that, you know, knitting, lace knitting, stuff like that, it's like programming, you know, it's ones and zeros, holes and knit, and a lot of weaving as well is very, I mean, that is where programming came from. It came from weaving looms and mills, and I want to do absolutely do a video and talk more about that because it's so cool. There is so much pattern thinking, logical thinking in knitting patterns and crochet patterns and tatting patterns that are just amazingly intricate and similar to, you know, engineering blueprints and diagrams, and it's just absolute horse shit. Sorry, that there's this divide. Absolutely not. There is no divide. You can be creative and logical, and you can do both. And I can yell about it from my side, having obviously a science background, and Bernadette can yell about it, showing how analytical and how, you know, detailed and detail focused she is, and research and references and sources, and there's no reason you can't do both. There's absolutely no reason. Curiosity extends in both directions. There is just yeah, mini rant, bit of a soapbox. I don't understand why we need to be like this, try to make these false dichotomies of, you know, pitting this side against this side. No reason to try to pit science and logic against creativity and like there's just no reason. Like, do both, do everything, do what excites you. Don't let them tell you otherwise. I give you permission, if you need it, to do both, to do things that excite you. Yeah, it's super cool. Yeah. Let's see. My mom loves Arne Carlos and all things norsk, yeah, Norwegian. So I ordered. Oh, it vanished. Oops, I'm slow. So I ordered some Regia sock yarn to make their socks. She's super excited. That is so cool. That is very nice. Yeah, it's difficult to see like what sorts of your culture might make other people excited when you just live it every day. But that is so cool. That is so fun. The Discord notifications are very helpful. I'm glad. That is sort of why I tried to set up that system, and it also feels a little bit less pressuring for me, because again, I would feel scared if I set up a live in YouTube, which feels like a lot bigger, a lot more public, and then had to take it down because I was sick. Then that's another thing that you need to manage, and it's just, yeah, it's just extra spoons, and it didn't seem like a nice time. So that is part of the reason why I put it in the Discord in that manner. But I mean, it's the main thing with the Discord is trying to build a community of equally supportive craft enthusiasts and science enthusiasts, and yeah, the melding of both worlds, because why not? The best Norwegian yarn is Rauma. Slight disagree there. I love Rauma, this is Rauma, but I also really love Hillesvåg, which are the two spinners in Norway who still do exclusively Norwegian yarns. A lot of the others, they will import fleece from other places, but Rauma and Hillesvåg do Norwegian locally sourced wool, and this is, locally sourced lamb's wool, which with the clothing industry and the fashion industry and how much things travel all over the globe multiple times, like the fiber will travel to a spinning mill on one side of the world, and then that will travel to a weaving mill on the other side of the world, and then the fabric will travel to sewing plant, factory, and it just travels, the world around multiple times over. And I just, whenever I can, I try to find things that haven't traveled so far, because it's such a big part of the carbon calculations that we don't really remember or see when you just see yarn in a shop and you just buy it. And I find it is a lot of the times a forgotten cost that people don't necessarily consider when they buy things. Migraines are terrible. You have my sympathy. I appreciate every video you put up. Well, thank you. That is very kind of you. I really enjoy making videos. It's a lot of fun to get to show you the projects that I made, and it's easier to accommodate for my migraines when I'm working from home, obviously, because I can take it slow when I have a slow day, and I can take advantage of a good day. And for some reason, the one accommodation I asked for when I was working in an office was, I need more sun protection. I need not just blinds that let all the light through but none of the sun, but I need like daylight blocking, like dark curtains, and that was not possible, because that would change the facade and the architecture, and yeah, I couldn't. So I had to work inside with sunglasses, and I still got migraines by the time I got home. And here, if I'm having a day when I'm vulnerable to light, I just draw the dark curtain, and I can often keep doing some work. It's so easy, but it was never so easy in an office setting. It was so many hurdles. It was strange. I would love to frolic in a Norwegian yarn shop. It's quite fun. There are a lot of small local independent yarn shops. They're very cute. They're so stuffed to the brim with yarn, because they obviously need to utilize every centimeter of space. And yeah, they're always very nice and knitting enthusiasts, and there's so many nice tactile things to touch and feel and look at, and so much fun. I don't do it very often, because again, I know which yarns I really love and I know which yarns are local, but occasionally if we are running errands in the city, I do like to stop by and just look at all the gorgeous colors and imagine all the fantastic projects we could make if we had all of the time in the world. As a software engineer, I can say that it can totally go together. Exactly. There's no reason to create a false dichotomy of setting things up to be opposites of each other when they are not at all. There's no reason for them to be opposites when we can enjoy everything. Go forth and enjoy everything. On the topic of science, tech, and crafting arts, it's interesting to note that the manufacture of the first CPUs required people that were capable of doing very fine beading. Yes, there are so many tech things that needed very fine crafting to function at all. I remember reading in the Golden Thread, the last few chapters are more about sciencey things, and such as the first spacesuits, and NASA in the beginning couldn't figure out how to make them, and there was this whole chapter that Cassia Sinclair wrote about how they found this, I think it was a lingerie company with seamstresses who had the accuracy required to make the spacesuits, and there were several layers of many different fabrics and quite difficult to stitch. And the most difficult thing was that you couldn't pin it, because that would of course be a hole, and you could only sew it once, because again, if you made a mistake, you couldn't just seam rip it, because you'd already made holes in the fabric. So they needed that very fine sewing skill in order to to make the spacesuits and make that possible in the first place. And there's so many things in computing and software engineering that are like that. I remember there being an invention around, I think they were carbon nanotubes in South America, might have been, where they were literally sitting with microscopes, weaving them pardon, into like tubes that would be used like stents, you know, in hearts and ears and in medical applications. And they were woven by hand by these amazingly skilled women, leading a technological advance in that way. So yeah, there's no dichotomy. These skills are so amazing and such a big part of human everything. Math and music are very related in how our minds are wired. Many actors have great skill with other performing arts. Some are quite surprising. Yeah, exactly. There is no divide. Absolutely not. No reason to make that false divide when there is none. Both are amazing. I love both equally. Creating and learning just go together hand in hand. There's an example in the Computer Museum in San Jose, California. That is so cool. Oh, I would like to see that. Museums are cool. I didn't appreciate them as much as a child because but now I'm just, it's so cool to just go to museums and just look at things. And working museums are even more fun. When we went to Gothenburg last year, there was this weaving museum, industrial weaving, that made like really strong heavy duty straps for industrial application. And as they were giving the tour and showing us around, they would turn on different parts of the equipment and show us how they worked. And it was just so cool to see all these different things and talk about weaving and spinning in an industrial technical application. There's just so many cool things. Would love a video on Ada Lovelace? Yeah, that's a really cool woman right there. So amazing. And how science-minded people can be creative. There are at least 2 of us. Oh, there are so many more of us than that. So many more of us. We are so many. But we get told that, you know, there's a dichotomy. But I noticed this, especially like when I started sharing my creations on Instagram, I quite quickly accumulated, a set of friends and acquaintances who were in STEM fields, in science field, medical doctors, you know, microscopists, researchers, mathematicians, astronomers, all these amazingly technical fields of study and work, and amazingly creative people making things, beautiful things. I mean, just think about Sosteen being an anesthesiologist and creating these beautiful embroidery dresses. Like, yeah, no divide. Yes, that's why I love Rauma. Never heard it pronounced by a native. Oh, yeah. Sometimes that is difficult to jump between because the pronunciation is different. Like, how I structure speaking is different when I speak English than when I speak Norwegian. So sometimes I don't jump between and sometimes I do, and it gets really confusing to my ears, but but it is what it is. We do our best. Engineering Knits had a video about programming and knitting machines having historical overlap. Yes, such a cool video. That is exactly what I'm talking about. There's so many cool overlaps that people don't think about when they're just like, oh, science and creativity are like 2 different things. And it's all like creative thinking and problem solving and finding solutions to problem you didn't know you had. And yeah, that's why I love spinning. I know the yarn is made extremely locally, but then it's hard to find wool to spin. Yeah, it can be like both sides of the coin can be challenging, but it's fun to, again, try to find solutions to these problems. And sometimes you don't rarely you find a perfect solution, but you get a little bit closer to a solution, and that is worth something, I think. I wish we had more local yarns. Gotland's Spinnery is one of them, and I love their wool. They are one of our few in Sweden who process local wool, bought their equipment secondhand from Italy, and that is so cool. That is interesting, because we go to Sweden a couple of times, you know, to visit. My my partner's parents has a little cabin a little ways across the border, so we do visit sometimes to relax. And we've been to a few yarn shops, and I haven't seen the Gotland spinnery in those. I mean, we are quite far from Gotland though, but I will be on the lookout for that if I see it. It's very good to know that that is a local brand as well. Absolutely, I'm always on the lookout of, you know, brands local to wherever I am, because as much as I love Rauma and Hillesvåg and you know, talk about it and show you and use it, I do also really want you to find the yarns that are local to you, because if we just end up with a world where Rauma just ships all around the world, then you have the same problem in reverse, like it's local to me but not necessarily local to you. So I do also really encourage people to find people that are local to their own region and fun with that. Come to Colorado, we have beautiful sheep and beautiful country to appreciate. Yeah, say this. Local is going to be different for everyone, and it's nice to be to encourage your local crafters. I mean, that is the old cliche, isn't it? The whole think globally, act locally. You know, you can do a lot of good work for your local creatives and artisans and business owners if you act locally and don't buy from the big chains that don't seem to be doing that. You know, the money doesn't really stay in the community and doesn't really help very much. But wow, a world where the look of a building that, though probably no one is looking at, are more important than the people working inside. Not good at all. Yeah. It's a bit weird, isn't it? But bureaucracy takes time. I think that is a lot of the time, because I was on a temporary contract. I mean, I was just a PhD student, so it wasn't as if, so they knew I wasn't going to work there forever, so they were unwilling to make, you know, big changes for someone who was only going to be there temporarily, and that is probably part of it. But yeah, when you have big businesses, we know that things like universities are such big, large scale companies with a lot of moving parts. So you know that, you know, the bigger a company is, the harder it is to make change happen. That is just how that goes. We have plenty of yarn. Their wool just doesn't get processed for hand spinners. That is a shame. That is, but at least by getting it whenever we can get it, you encourage the farmer that maybe there is a market for this. It's unfortunate that in some parts of the world wool goes to waste, full stop. It doesn't even get spun up commercially. Yeah, it is a really big shame. And it's a shame because I mean, if you're raising the sheep, presumably for lamb's meat or mutton or what have you, then the wool is there. So if we use it, that is better than, you know, wasting it. And then you don't need to use a different resource because you have this resource that gets wasted, and that just, yeah, it just doesn't add up. It's the one thing that, you know, I'm always looking for ways to utilize everything at home. Like I try to freeze offcuts of different things and make boiled broth. I have the multi-cooker downstairs that I received as a gift. It is currently boiling some broth from a box that I've been filling in the freezer, and when it's finally full, I tip it in with some water, and then I have homemade stock, and it's amazing. And I just like to look for ways to utilize resources more efficiently whenever I can. And I get a bit sad when I see on an industrial scale that you have this big opportunity for utilizing a resource that isn't being used, and I just want to talk about that and be like, we could use this resource so much better. It's just, yeah, it would be so nice. Like imagine if we could respect and use the resources on a different scale. How would that look for the world? How would that be different? That would be, yeah, that would be really cool. There's always going to be some waste, but I think there's a lot of room for improvement that we could try to do. Even if wool is not great for spinning, it can be used in duvets or insulations and toy stuffing. Yeah, that was also common in the past. You would find in between traditional houses in Norway, which is, you know, log on top of each other, that if mittens and stuff had been used past their mending, date, they would stuff them into the cracks to stop wind coming through and as extra insulation. So they absolutely utilized that kind of thing. It's really cool. Yeah, you could buy a fleece and process it yourself, but it does take a lot of space and it's a lot of work too. You know, it's yeah, but calm down. When they are telling you that they have no space and to do that, we don't need to pressure them into doing that. You know, there is no need for that. But I love finding spinners who have their own goats and sheep and then selling their yarns as a Renaissance fair. I pick up as much yarn as I can during work breaks. Yeah, I also do that. There is... Oh yeah, there's another spinner as well that I forget that also do local wool, but they're very small. They're called Selbu Spinnery, which is a small... and they take in wool from farmers too, which I think is really cool. That farmers can send their wool to this spinnery and they will spin it and send it back to them so that they can sell it at markets and fairs. And that is a really nice little market business where small-scale farmers and farmers market can utilize another thing from their sheep. And they can also, there are also a couple of places where they can send, you know, the fleece and the skins for processing into sheepskins that they also sell that are nice and lovely and soft. And yeah, I think that is again a thing that is really amazing about the internet and the connectivity that we have these days, that, you know, nothing is more than a text message away, is that you can have a lot of small scale producers know about a processing sort of place a little ways away, and then they can ship their raw materials to that place and get back something that they can sell at a much better price. And I think rural people are more used to doing that sort of thing. When I lived in Tromsø, which is pretty far north, you have this, Tromsø being a city center and a larger city, but you have a lot of people who live 1 to 2 hours away, and they would like write a list and sort of plan a day trip to Tromsø, and they would come early in the morning and they had a long list of things, you know, shoes to take to the cobbler, you know, maybe you would even go to the doctor if you didn't have one local to you. I heard older people talking about when they took the boat into Tromsø, they would have like a wedding, a couple of baptisms, a confirmation, you know, all just stacked up. And then they would just do them all at the same time. Sort of save them up like that. And people still think in those terms. So I have a friend who is a superb cobbler, like really, really skilled, really interested in their craft and curious about learning new things and all of those things. And he will get people who travel into the city specifically for that long list of tasks, and they will bring their shoes to him. They will talk about what needs to be done, and then he will take them in, and they will leave. I mean, they're only there for a day and then they go home. So then he will just fix it and they will pay, and he will put it in a box and ship it back to them so that they don't have to go back to the city, you know, just for that, which I think is really cool. It's a really nice way of doing business in a way, in a region where you know that people will often come visit and they might not come back for another 6 months when they have worked up another long list of things that need to get done. My mom loves to travel. She's in New Zealand right now. She always finds lovely souvenirs. My only request is local yarn. I asked for wool and possum yarn this time. Possum yarn? Interesting. I have not heard of that, but there are so many different things. But yeah, that is very nice to have. Why are you putting your yarn over on the wrong side, madam? This is what happens when you are trying to talk at the same time. Let's rectify that. But yeah, I also love to look for local craftsmen when I'm traveling, because the souvenirs that I can use receive so much more love. We were on a trip to some of the small islands in Greece once, one of the few long distance trips. Well, long distance is relative, and we found a lovely little shop that made hand carved things from olive. And olive trees are sacred. You're not allowed to kill one on purpose. So they would get the trees that were dead or died, on their own, because they can live for a very long time. And they would carve these beautiful things. And I got a mortar and pestle, and I love using it because it's such a nice, well-crafted item, and super, super dense and hard too. Just super amazing. It's just, yeah. Handcrafted things are so cool. It is costlier than, machine-made things to acquire, but often they last for a long time, especially if you take care of them. But here's a Dutch saying that talking and knitting don't go together. I can see that. I can see that. I can usually manage a bit. It depends on the complexity of the pattern, but yeah, at least spotting the issue is half the problem. I feel like. But oh goodness, we have been going for well over 2 hours already. I am not paying attention to the time. I think we shall have to wrap things up when I finish this round on the needles for this time, because I do have things to do this lovely Sunday, such as my broth that is boiling and other such sundry relaxing things before the work week starts anew. But I hope you have a good time crafting things, creating things, being patient with yourselves as well as others, even though it's often easier to be patient with other people. But you can be nice to yourself as well, and I will try to do the same, difficult as that is. It's always difficult to apply the same advice you give others to yourself, isn't it? Having to follow your own advice. I like a podcast with a person called Alan Donegan called Rebel Entrepreneur, where he talks about creative ways to build businesses that don't have to, invest a lot of money or cost a lot of money to start. And he will often talk about how he will give all this advice, and then sometimes his wife will turn around and give his own advice back to him if he's struggling with something, and that, you get a bit grumbly, like, you don't really want to, but it's good advice, and then you have to go and do it. But yeah, following your own advice is difficult. It's different from much easier to give it to someone else, isn't it? Yeah, time to get some sleep here in Colorado. Good night. Good night. Sleep well. And homemade broth is said to be very nice for you, and it tastes good. It's so easy that even I can make it. Yeah, after I got the multi-cooker, a lot of foods became even easier to make than they already were, especially boiling beans and making broths, because I can just pop it in the multi-cooker and turn on the timer and leave it. I don't have to watch it, get to a boil and then turn the temperature down and ensure that it's still boiling. And it's just so nice. It makes it a lot easier to eat healthier and use up the resources that we have to a better extent. This has been comforting and enjoyable. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you right back for joining us and having fun. And yeah, have a lovely day, everyone. And hopefully we will see each other again soon. Bye.